This is the third in a series of videos in which I explain biblical salvations. As mentioned in the preceding videos, the Bible teaches at least two salvations in the life of every believer. In reality, there may be many more, but two, as I understand it, should occur in the life of every believer. The first is a gift from our loving Father, and I cannot see that any believer will turn it down. It is to break the hold of the world on our thinking processes. The second will be at the end when we finally enter heaven. When using the word salvation, the first that comes to mind, and that what most people intuitively think, is that it is a reference to heavenly access. I call it, for the sake of clarity, final salvation. Final salvation refers to the conditions or requirements, if any, that need to be met before a person will be granted access to heaven. A reference to this meaning of the word salvation comes from the pen of Luke. He recorded Yeshua's answer on a question about salvation as follows. And he said unto them, Strive to enter in at the strait gate, for many, I say unto you, will seek to enter in, and shall not be able. The word strive means to do your utmost. Yeshua was unequivocal on the issue. Access rights depend on effort. The remark leaves little room for imagination. What is also conspicuous is that some will be precluded because they are incapable. He did not state the reason for the inability, but it appears to be due to a lack of determination. Another example comes from a story that the Apostle Matthew recorded. In this story, Yeshua equates heaven to a wedding feast to which people from all walks of life had been invited. According to the story, all those present at the feast must have a wedding garment on, and if found without it, access to the feast was forcefully prevented. The wedding garment is a metaphor for some condition that is to be met. The story itself does not reveal the specific requirements, but whatever it is the responsibility of the guests to be appropriately clothed, not the bridegroom. Yet another example is from the parable of the virgins, where 5 virgins were precluded from the wedding feast because they had insufficient amount of oil in their lamps. Once again, whatever condition the oil refers to, it was the responsibility of those waiting on the bridegroom, and not the bridegroom or his representatives. The Apostle John was asked to relay the results of a divine appraisal to each of the 7 different assemblies in Asia. According to this evaluation, all but 2 of those assemblies fell short of the desired requirements. From these letters, deeds, or the absence of them, at least partially explains the conditions we were told about in the parables. And lastly, we have 44 sacred books called the Old Testament, narrating ancient Israel's adventures. It foretells the life of believers and explains how the new covenant is to be understood. It gives many examples of success and failure. It explains how only a remnant will reach the promised land, despite everybody's salvation from Egypt. Although the Messiah has done and is doing everything to ensure we have the means to complete the journey, when it comes to our final salvation, he will not indemnify the substandard performance of his followers. Contrarily, he is the one who's threatened to remove the candlestick from the Ephesians congregation, and he will see to it that those without a wedding garment will be forcefully removed from the wedding. On Judgment Day, he will deny access to those without sufficient oil in their lamps, even if they beg to be allowed entrance. Faith obviously plays a cardinal role in whatever conditions are implied. It leads to actions that Yahweh, through his Son, desires of us. Faith is defined as presenting substance of the unseen and evidence for what is hoped for. It is a behavior that exhibits the unseen heaven through words and deeds. It is a challenging task. It submits to authority. It smiles when everything is taken away from you or blesses the person who assaults you. It turns the other cheek. The evidence of faith includes saints who sing praises despite persecution and imprisonment. Exhibiting faith that meets these requirements is strenuous and challenging and may be seen as strife. Heavenly behavior in a raucously evil world requires that we put on the full armor to remain standing. We need to become strong in Him and in the power of His might. Many will testify of the importance being led by the Holy Spirit. Any believer will, however, also be able to testify how easy it is for a sovereign man to override the advice of the Holy Spirit. The attractions of this world are tempting for those not rooted in faith. The unease frequently intensifies between what we know is right and what we want. This conflict between two strong masters in the minds of believers is threatening the desired outcome. One cannot continue to serve two gods. The master of this world will continue to interfere with the sanctifying process. Conquering the strong voice coming from this world is important. The enemy of our sanctification is our own fleshly desires. It must be defeated. The final showdown is not theory. It does indeed occur. It is a supernatural event and could be seen as an act of deliverance, or, as the Holy Spirit explains it in the book of Ephesians, the gift of salvation. Where final salvation refers to entrance into heaven, determined by whether a person had been issued with a wedding garment or whether he has enough oil in his lamp, the first salvation prepares believers to constantly and persistently pursue the right choices throughout his life. Please click on any of the links below. The one will take you to the next video. God bless.